Welcome to the fifth episode of Dr. Lukman's Perspective. I am your host, Salihu Lukman, and today we'll be discussing the part 3 of our psychology series titled Understanding Personality Psychology for Better Interpersonal Relationships. All types of mental, psychiatric, and personality disorders can generally fall under psychological disorders. I have discussed two personality disorders before, BPD and HPD, that is borderline personality disorder, and histrionic personality disorder, in addition to a neurodevelopmental disorder, ADHD, in episode 4, and how they can disrupt students' learning. Understanding one's personality and the personalities of those around you, most especially for couples, is a prerequisite to enjoying everlasting harmony. Parents should study their children and understand their different personalities. I want to propose that even intending couples should undergo a personality test to unravel their personalities for a better interpersonal relationship. An MBTI personality test may be administered by a specialized person to reveal one's personality. We should know about our personalities much the same way we would want to know about our genotypes and HIV or hepatitis statuses before marriage. Knowing one's personality may help reveal if there is any disorder that is associated with one's personality. If there is any, then couples should know ab initio before embarking on marriage. This will go a long way to prevent some after-marriage conflicts from destroying the marriage. Remember that a stitch in time saves 9. It is also my position that certain psychological disorders may not be compatible. The presence of such disorders, which I will elaborate on, will be a ticking time bomb for any marriage. It is also my position that all marriage divorces and separations are linked with one psychological disorder or another. Having a full grasp of these psychological disorders and the fact that we can do very little in most instances to change them will foster greater tolerance and understanding of wayward attitudes among couples. Don't be judgmental. You have to learn to live and let live. That is to say, you have to accept one's personality as it is and not try to change it because you can't. You should tolerate the opinions and behavior of others so that they will similarly tolerate your own. If you are experiencing marital problems, it is still not too late to undergo a personality test with a view to uncovering what is in your personality that is responsible for your recurrent marital conflicts. Domestic violence arising from psychological disorders is real. Men are also victims. It is not only women that suffer from domestic violence. I will narrow my examples in this episode to couples because the most intimate relationship is that which exists between a husband and wife. A case study of the most incompatible couple. The couple has the following personality profiles according to my analysis of their respective personalities and psychological disorders. Husband's personality profile: introvert, BPD, borderline personality disorder, and ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, since childhood. Wife's personality profile: extrovert, HPD, histrionic personality disorder, BPD and ADHD, also since childhood. They gave birth to a child who has ADHD also. I have already presented some of the symptoms of HPD, BPD, and ADHD in episode 4. You can watch it again to refresh your knowledge on these psychological disorders. I hope to one day host this wonderful and special couple on this show and get a sense of how they beat all odds and remain together as husband and wife despite their glaringly incompatible psychological disorders. Note that BPD and ADHD share the following characteristics: impulsivity and risk behavior, poor emotional control. In addition, BPD has the following peculiar features: 1. Dichotomous thinking. 2. Rumination and disproportionate reaction when provoked. Also, ADHD has the following peculiar features: poor executive functions such as organizing tasks and house items, forgetfulness and distractibility, in addition to hyperactive and always on the go. Let me emphasize here that there is ability in every disability. That is to say, in spite of these psychological disorders bedeviling this couple, the wife is the most intelligent person I have ever seen. They are all doing excellently well academically. Just because you have a given psychological disorder does not mean that you will not succeed in life. In fact, you may succeed far more than your peers who have no psychological disorder at all. To prove my point, watch a movie called A Beautiful Mind, based on a true life story about a schizophrenic called John Nash, who went on to win a Nobel Prize in economics in 1994. You should note that impulsivity is the common denominator for HPD, BPD, and ADHD. People who are impulsive are commonly described as hot-headed, rash, unpredictable, and unstable. Impulsivity should not be confused with compulsion, in which a person recognizes the behavior is abnormal but cannot stop it. With impulsivity, the person will act out without inherently recognizing that the behavior is abnormal. Things and scenarios that are common among people with BPD include abruptly changing or canceling plans, binge eating or drinking, clearing out belongings to start anew, constantly turning over a new leaf, destroying property, escalating confrontations, frequent emotional outbursts, inability to receive criticism without affront, joining or quitting a lot of groups on social media, jumping to conclusions, meaningless or risky sex, over-apologizing, oversharing of emotions, overspending, physical violence, quitting a job suddenly, self-harm, self-mutilation, threatening to harm one's life or others. Although psychiatrists claim to have a drug that can checkmate impulsive behavior, with BPD and ADHD combined, I doubt if a medication can actually prevent such impulsive behaviors in the presence of a trigger. However, dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, which is a form of psychotherapy, may help reduce impulsivity. What is dichotomous thinking? If most of your thoughts break down to black or white, good or bad, and all or nothing, then it is possible that you have a strong tendency towards dichotomous thinking. Dichotomous thinking is responsible for splitting or idealization and devaluation. And dichotomous thinking contributes to interpersonal problems and emotional and behavioral instability. BPD is a condition that is challenging to live with. BPD is often difficult to diagnose because people who have it may experience extreme mood swings and erratic behavior, but cannot generally see themselves as having a problem and instead view others as the problem. People with BPD are more likely to display dichotomous thinking than people who do not have BPD. A person with dichotomous thinking may meet a new co-worker at work. In the beginning, the co-worker is viewed as amazing, perfect and better than any other co-worker or friend ever encountered before. People with dichotomous thinking tend to have favorites and to believe that everything about a favorite person or thing is superior to others. However, as time goes on, someone with dichotomous thinking may suddenly swing to the opposite extreme upon the slightest trigger or provocation. As a coping strategy for people living with BPD, learn to consider your own assumptions by asking yourself the following questions before you allow your thoughts to upset you. Is there any evidence that supports my thoughts? Am I considering all angles, or am I leaving things out? Could my assumption be challenged by someone else? If yes, how? Does everyone else see it this way? Am I being fair to others in making this opinion? By taking a step back, you can build the skills necessary to learn to form a more realistic perception of your relationships and your environment. I can assure you that BPD is one of the worst psychological disorders you can ever have. Whoever suffers from BPD will exhibit the true definition of a difficult person. Most people with BPD also suffer from clinical depression, which may degenerate into a major depressive disorder, MDD. From the foregoing, you will agree with me that it took the mercy of the Almighty to still bind together as husband and wife this highly incompatible couple whose personality profile has been described above. BPD versus BPD, ADHD versus ADHD, and in addition, the wife has an HPD. If an intending couple presents similar personality profiles before marriage, I think they should be discouraged from getting married because of the enormous challenge that lies ahead after the marriage. I believe that evil spirits, that is jinns, exist in this world and they can possess humans. However, sometimes a mental disorder is mistaken to be a possession by evil spirits, most especially if it involves psychosis. And psychosis basically involves delusion and hallucination. Lastly, do not hesitate to seek medical and psychological help if you notice that you or your loved ones have signs and symptoms of any of the psychological disorders. For more resources on psychology and psychiatry, visit verywellmind.com and medscape.com. Thank you for listening.